One of the things that people hire us to do is to reduce the friction in their portfolio. What does that mean? Obviously, try to deliver our services as efficiently as possible. And one of the ways to do that is to reduce the friction of taxes. That's something that's nonpartisan in my book. You look at the potential taxes that are being proposed all the way from changing the long-term capital gains rate up substantially to removing step-up in basis for estate planning, doing this crazy idea of trying to tax unrealized capital gains. Not even sure that that is constitutional, but these are all the things that are in front of us. And why do I bring it up is because of the fact, and this is a bit of a rant, is that there's never enough revenue. And I don't think we have a revenue problem, Brian. I think we have a spending problem. And that gets revisited every single year. And here we're running these massive deficits. And the reason why I bring it up is because there's indicators that are telling us that gold and the dollar are really trying to tell us a story.
Yeah, if you look at just from the historical perspective, revenue to the government as a percent of GDP is about average, right? I mean, it's been higher, it's been lower, but really spending is the part that is above normal. A lot of that is driven by entitlements, of course. So you have Social Security, Medicare. You also now have interest expense. Because of the Fed's tight monetary policy, it has increased the cost of financing for the government.
But let's talk about that. This is a really important point. Interest rates have gone up because the Fed's trying to slow inflation. So they raise it from 0 to 5, over 5%. That means when the government issues a bond, they have to pay a higher interest rate, and a higher interest rate on $35 trillion is a big number.
That's right. It can really move the needle. This is the first budget year in which interest expense is more than $1 trillion. It's one of those things where it's almost like it's worse than astronomical numbers. It used to be that, that whole Carl Sagan quote about billions and billions. That used to be kind of our benchmark for what was a big number, but now it's about trillions, incredibly big. And if you think about plans put in front of us as far as from the different candidates, a lot of it does seem to be focused on taxes. But as you point out, it's really what's going to move the needle on the deficit and on the debt is more what's in the government's control. And that is the spending, because revenue, yes, they can set the rates, but it's still up to the private sector, economic growth to really determine what is that revenue going in.
And I'll tell you why that's so important, because just because you raise the tax rate, there is plenty of studies that says that does not necessarily mean that you're going to get more revenue. So in fact, raising that rate sometimes decreases the revenue because people take the opportunity to either not sell something, hold on to something, so on and so forth. And so running these massive deficits when we're at near full employment is of concern. And the Federal Reserve only can do so many things. And you've pointed this out before. They can encourage the public to do or not to do, to borrow or to spend, but they really don't control it. And in fact, the market is really telling us more. So you look at what's happening with gold, you look at what's happening with the dollar and even the Treasury market. The Treasury market's moved way before the Federal Reserve.
It has, yes. And like gold, just to kind of go with that one a little bit deeper, a lot of central bank activity around the world has been for purchasing gold. A lot of that is just because of maybe some growing concerns about the direction for the dollar. And so other central banks, they used to always hold dollars as a reserve currency. Now they're beginning to go kind of back to the future and purchase gold instead.